Hi friends, and welcome back to another bookish video. I'm Sam, and in honor of Thanksgiving, today we're going to be talking about books revolving around food. There are many books that have a lot of food in them. Mostly I hear about like baked goods, like coffee shops and stuff, and there are a few of those on this list, but there are some other books that have foods from other cultures. So let's just get into it. My first recommendation, again, this book was not for me, but a lot of people liked it, and it is about food, so why not? The Bake Shop at the Pumpkin and Spice. Now, again, if you can get past the Insta love, it's not an awful book. I'm just not an insta-love girly. I want my characters to have to work for the romance. One of the main characters works in her Italian grandmother's bake shop making special cookies and stuff, and there's a lot of baked goods mentioned. Had to put that in there. The next recommendation is The Murder at Beacon Bake Shop, and again, this is the start of a series. It's a cozy murder mystery about a woman from the big city who is jilted by her fiance, and she moves to this small town and converts a lighthouse into a bakery. It's really cozy, a lot of baked goods again, so that's why that's on here. The next recommendation is going to be Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. This book is amazing. I absolutely cannot recommend this book enough. I am so excited for the sequel to come out, which I believe comes out next year. We follow an older Asian lady who owns a tea shop, and she comes in one morning to find a dead body in her tea shop, and she thinks the police aren't doing a good enough job to solve the case, so she attempts to butt in and solve the case, and the outcome is hilarious, but also really sweet and cozy. It talks a lot about homemade Asian foods and the way they describe these foods. It's just absolutely yummy, and I'm not a big Chinese food person, but the way they described the food made me really want to go get some. The next recommendation is Candy Coated Murder, which is, again, part of a series. And in this series, the main character works at a candy shop owned by her mother in this town that's all about Halloween. And it's another cozy murder mystery. They talk a lot about the process of making the different types of candies. It was fun. The next recommendation is The Way You Make Me Feel. And this is about a teenager who comes from a divorced family, and she lives with her dad. Her mom is a influencer. Her dad owns a food truck, and he mixes Korean foods with Brazilian steakhouse foods. Oh my gosh, it made me want some Korean food so much. Like, the way they described the scents and the taste and all the different foods made me so hungry. Like, I would eat the shit out of this food truck. Like, I would be at this food truck every day. The next recommendation is, of course, Legends and Lattes. And this is, again, kind of Dungeons and Dragons meets a coffee shop, where it's an orc who decides to stop being a mercenary and open up her own coffee shop. And this place, they don't know anything about coffee, so she has to educate them on coffee, and she has to go through the process of opening up a coffee shop like we would think of it, with music and baked goods. So you get to see the process of that. Now let's switch gears from fiction into nonfiction. I'm going to give you some cookbook recommendations. The first is going to be Southern Grit. There's a lady where I'm from who actually won Top Chef, or whatever that show is called. Kelsey Bernard Clark. She owns a restaurant here in town called KBC, and she wrote a cookbook all about Southern type comfort foods. Yes, grits are in there. If you want some down-home Southern cooking, this cookbook is amazing. And the stories that she tells are so, I mean, it just captures the essence of being a Southerner. This book is truly special. The next recommendation is going to be the unofficial Harry Potter cookbook. The family that I nanny for gave me this book a few Christmases ago. It has a lot of the foods from the Harry Potter books and movies, like the candies and some of the foods at the dining hall in Hogwarts. And it gives the recipes for how to make these different foods. So that was, as a Harry Potter fan, that was really interesting to me. It's a lot of, I would say, almost comfort English foods in a way. And if you're interested in the Harry Potter series or the world of Harry Potter, then definitely check this book out. The next recommendation is going to be the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook, the red and white plaid one. That I feel is a staple of basic cooking almost. I think that's a good standard basic cookbook for the basic beginner cook. That's what I was taught to cook with when I was a kid. Bless you. The next, can you not? Are you done? Okay. The next recommendation is where I got my pecan pie recipe from, and that is Martha Stewart's book, Entertaining. And it has a lot of recipes. It's also about throwing like a dinner party and entertaining. If for no other reason, the basic pecan pie recipe in it is worth the price of the book by itself. It's so like ridiculously simple to make. You know what? I think I'm going to do black eyeliner today since I'm wearing a black shirt. The last recommendation, and again, this is another basic cookbook, is The Joy of Cooking. My mother-in-law actually let me read this book. I thought it was a great book for the basics of cooking, but also, as it says, how to find joy in it. The simple pleasure of cooking and feeding those that you love. This one in the Better Homes and Gardens, I think everybody should have a copy of those because they're just your basic cookbooks on how to learn the basics. So if you're a beginner cook or struggling like me, then definitely give those two a check. So those are my recommendations for some fiction books that talk about food, as well as some of my favorite cookbooks. In honor of Thanksgiving, I am going to teach you how to cook the perfect Southern cornbread dressing. This is actually my husband's grandmother's recipe. It is true home-style Southern cornbread dressing. This is a 2-day process. So on the first day, you're going to want to take chicken and whatever else you want to make stock with, like onions, celery, etc. And you're going to want to boil it for an hour. Then let it cool off and put it in the fridge overnight so the water can absorb all the goodness. Also on the first day, you want to take some Martha White yellow self-rising cornbread mix, and there's a recipe on the back for Southern cornbread. Make it and throw it in a Ziploc bag and leave that overnight. You want it to get a little stale. So the next day, on day 2, when you actually go to make it, you're going to take the cornbread, put it in a big mixing pot, and you're going to add 1 egg, the shredded chicken, 1 can of cream of chicken, and you're going to mix that, and it's going to be really thick. You're going to add your stock, the stock that you made from day 1. You're going to add that until, and the recipe says until it's a little too wet. I don't know how to explain that other than to say when it really can't hold much more juice. When it's not flooded, when the water's not sitting on top, but like you've reached that level of absorption where it's not going to absorb much more stock. You want to stop there, mix it all up. And again, go slow. You can always add stock. You can't take it out. So go slow when you're adding because you don't want to add too much. But I will say it is better to add just a hair too much than dry. After you have all that, your egg, your cream of chicken, your shredded chicken, your chicken stock, your cornbread, you're going to mix it all up, throw it in a baking pan, and you're going to bake it at 350 for an hour or an hour and a half. This is something that there's no set time for. This is something that you're going to have to keep your eye on. You don't want it to dry out. You want it moist, but you don't want it runny. Like there's a perfect consistency that you want to get. You don't want it too dry and thick, but you don't want it too thin and runny. So when it gets to the consistency that you want it, that's when it needs to come out. Again, it's about an hour and an hour and a half at 350. And that, my friends, is the recipe for how to make homemade Southern cornbread dressing. And here's the final look. I hope you enjoy these books that feature a lot of yummy foods in them. And let me know if you make that Southern cornbread dressing. It is so good. It's not Thanksgiving without it. It's just not. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.